Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition Series where I go over every NFL team's offseason preview and make some predictions. This is going to be the 18th of 32 episodes, and this is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. So we go over free agents to be, team needs, franchise tag candidate, a trade candidate, release candidate, extension candidate, draft fit, free agent fit, and a bold prediction for every team. And now up is the Los Angeles Chargers. They have several free agents to be. Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly, Jalen Guyton, Gerald Everett, Nick Williams, Austin Johnson, Kenneth Murray, Michael Davis, Alohi Gilman, Cameron Dicker. All right, they have a lot of team needs too with all the stuff they have going on. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, inside linebacker, cornerback, safety, kicker. All right, the easy franchise tag candidate on this team is Austin Eckler. He's their best player that's slated to be a free agent. He is a big part of that offense. He's been a productive player since he's gotten the opportunities with the Chargers, and I think that he's going to be tagged, and to me he's the obvious candidate to be tagged. I don't see it being anybody else on this team. All right, so trade candidate, Khalil Mack. This is a controversial one. This is somebody that they acquired in a trade, I want to say it was 2 years ago. Yes. They made that trade 2 years ago. I was right. And I think that he's in play to be traded again. I feel like there's a reason why you're traded every so often. So, as good as a player as Khalil Mack is, I do think he's a trade candidate on this roster. I also think that Keenan Allen might be. I think that Eric Kendricks may be. Derwin James, Asani Samuel Jr., maybe even Mike Williams, and somebody could talk themselves into his potential. But to me, the obvious one that sticks out is Khalil Mack in terms of guys that I could see being traded from this roster. Release candidate, Corey Linsley. Corey Linsley's just never healthy. That's just the facts. They signed him as a big-time free agent back in 2021, 5 years, $62.5 million. He had a heart issue, which was sad, so he didn't play the rest of the season. So he has 2 years left on the deal, and I really think that there's a possibility he is released. There's a lot of Chargers, I think, that are in play for this, including Keenan Allen. I think that Eric Kendricks and Khalil Mack could be release candidates too. Morgan Fox, maybe. But yeah, there's a lot of veterans on this team that are highly paid that I could just see them cutting ties. So, to me, the one that sticks out is Corey Linsley because of his health. And they obviously have to save some money to pay other guys down the road. So, that's the one that jumps out to me a lot for a guy that could potentially be cut on this roster. An extension candidate, Rashawn Slater. He is one of the guys that is a rock on the offensive line there. He was very good last year. He barely played in 22. He got hurt that year, but was awesome before he got hurt. Was awesome in his rookie season. And he's just a rock for Justin Herbert. So they have to pay Rashawn Slater. Other extension candidates, Josh Palmer, Asante Samuel. So, but of those three guys, the one that obviously sticks out is Rashawn Slater, who was a first-round pick, and is somebody that, when he's healthy, he's just a rock star at left tackle. So they have to pay him. All right, draft fit. Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is just the most obvious fit. Gerald Everett's a free agent. They're not going to re-sign him. And Brock Bowers is the best tight end that's going to be drafted probably since the guy on the Vikings now that got traded. And then he got hurt. I'm blanking on his name. But he's the best tight end that's going to be drafted in a while. And he's going to be a top 10 pick. Maybe the Chargers trade back for him if a quarterback is sitting there at 5 for somebody to trade up for. And they could trade back and get Bowers plus extra stuff. That would just be a miracle for the Chargers if that were to happen. And Bowers, Chargers, to me, is the most obvious team player fit because the Chargers want to win now with Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert is still there. And they still have guys on the roster that are win now players. So that's obviously a good fit for the Chargers. If they were to go wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Romeo Dunze, it would be good fits if they were to, say, get rid of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Jerzon Newton makes some sense for the Chargers, but that would be too high unless they trade it all the way back out of Brock Bowers' range. Leatu Latu and Jared Verse makes sense for the Chargers. Clay McKinstry, Cooper DeJean. And now looking at second-round players, Leonard Taylor makes a lot of sense. Darius Robinson, Kamari Lassiter, Zach Frazier if they do cut Corey Linsley. Chop Robinson and Garen Cooper makes some sense. If they were to lose Austin Eckler, Jonathan Brooks makes sense. Jonah Ellis makes sense. So there's a lot of draft guys that make sense for the Chargers. Okay, a free agent fit. Patrick Queen. They're probably going to lose Kenneth Murray, who wasn't really great to begin with. Former first-round pick by the Chargers from the COVID year. Pretty much every year he's had a failing grade on PFF, which makes him a bust first-round pick. And they didn't even pick up his fifth-year option, so he's going to be a free agent. And someone's going to sign him, but not for a lot of money. And if they do sign him for a lot of money, good luck. So Patrick Queen would be an upgrade over Kenneth Murray. And they were in the same draft, if I'm not mistaken, which is crazy. So Patrick Queen would make sense. Danielle Hunter would make sense. Kendall Fuller makes sense. Leonard Williams, DJ Reader, Kyle Duggar, if they were to not franchise tag him. Carmen Cool makes sense. Michael Wino makes sense. Chidobe Awuzie makes sense. Chase Young. If they were to lose Eckler, Jacobs, Barkley, and Henry would make sense as replacements. Stephon Gilmore, Frankie Louvu. But yeah, there's a lot of guys. Dalton Schultz makes a lot of sense if the Texans don't franchise tag him. Connor Williams makes sense if they cut Corey Linsley. Jonathan Grenard of the Texans makes sense. Levante David makes some sense. Jadeveon Clowney. Zadarius Smith of the Browns. But yeah, there's a lot of guys. Andre James, if they were to cut Lindsley. So there's guys that make a ton of sense for the Chargers for free agents. All right, and my bold prediction for this team is that several big names and highly paid players are cut or traded from this roster. I think Corey Lindsley is going to be cut. I think that somebody's going to be traded. I think it's going to be Khalil Mack. I just don't know or can't figure out the destination. I feel like it's going to be a team that could use him. I don't think they're going to trade him to the Chiefs because it's division. I don't think it's going to be Denver or the Raiders. So I think it could be somebody in the NFC. I just can't figure out who that team is yet. A team that could use him and his veteran leadership. And he's a win-now player still. I think that he's going to be traded. Maybe Derwin James or Asante Samuel. But I do think Mack and Lindsley won't be on this team next season. I think there's a chance that Keenan Allen or Mike Williams is on the team next year. And I think there's even a chance that Eric Kendricks isn't there either, or Morgan Fox. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in Los Angeles. All right, so potential futures for this team. You would think the Chargers are going to be the number 2 in their division. I think they're going to be like plus 270 for that division. If they're higher than 3-1, I would take a chance on them to win the division, which they could end up at 3-1 or higher. I don't think so because I think Herbert will get that number shorter alone and Harbaugh. So I think the Chargers would be like plus 270 or plus 275 for that division. Super Bowl, they are 30-1. And then the AFC, they are 16-1. Herbert MVP is 13-1. So I wonder, Austin Eckler Offensive Player of the Year, if he were to return, would that be like 60-1 or something like that? 70-1. Jim Harbaugh Coach of the Year, he's going to be one of the favorites. We know that. He's going to be like a 5-1 favorite with a couple other coaches that could be in play for that award. So, Jim Harbaugh is probably going to be the favorite for that award. And then Antonio Pierce is going to be up there too, you would think. So, Harbaugh Coach of the Year, if you want to do like an obvious awards parlay, the way to go is like Harbaugh Coach of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, CeeDee Lamb, MVP, pick your quarterback, whether it's Mahomes or Lamar or Allen or Burrow. Burrow Comeback Player of the Year with Harbaugh Coach of the Year is probably the most obvious award parlay sitting there. And then pick your poison with Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby for Defensive Player of the Year. But yeah, throwing Jim Harbaugh for Coach of the Year in like an awards parlay would be a lot of fun with some obvious ones like Joe Burrow Comeback Player of the Year or Mahomes MVP or something like that. Joey Bosa Defensive Player of the Year is probably going to be like 20 or 25-1. He's obviously going to have a good number. Khalil Mack on a new team, perhaps, whether it's Chargers or a new team, would probably have a good number like 35 or 40-1. Herbert Comeback Player of the Year. I don't think they're going to have odds for that because he didn't miss that much time. He just missed a month, pretty much, at the end of the season. So they might have him posted like 50-1 or something like that, or maybe 25-1. But Joe Burrow is going to be the favorite for that award. And Mike Williams Comeback Player of the Year, I wonder what that is. Or Corey Lindsley if he were to not get cut by the Chargers. All right, so, and then the other obvious award is Brock Bowers Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's a good one to parlay with Jim Harbaugh for Coach of the Year, whether Bowers is on the Chargers or not. Like, that would just be a fun one. And The reason why I throw that one out is that I think that's the obvious draft fit, and that's who I think they're probably going to take, whether that's at 5 or a trade down. So, there you have it for the Chargers. Next up is the Los Angeles Rams.